Welcome students to another session of development economics. So you will be seeing me for about good 4 to 5 weeks continuously. This will be a recorded session. So I'm planning to take a few other sessions on a lively basis. So today's area which we are going to focus is on international trade as well as economic development. And before we start the day's work, just important messages that it is always advisable for you to go through the recommended textbook, which has been uploaded by uh, the course coordinator to LMS, who happens to be the head of the department as well. And also, we do encourage you to watch these videos to share your knowledge, which are gained through this. And I'm planning to add 1 or 2 activities so that you can get a better understanding where you need to research a bit. Not lengthy activities, small activities, but which will need your application part. Okay, so always go through the recommended textbooks, and the most important message which I wanted to deliver is that last few years we had the pandemic, now we have the economic crisis, the political crisis, or whatever the name you want to give. The standard and the quality of the paper will not drop at any cost. So have that in mind. So it is your duty and obligation to attend to live lectures on time, or even if you won't be able to make it on time with other commitments. By other commitments, I mean by the commitments of your internship, then please do somehow find time to join the sessions, as well as to view the videos and get a better understanding. That is your duty, your job. Don't expect, since there is no electricity, no fuel, COVID pandemic, that and this, the papers will be easy, the papers will be marked in a way they're taking into these factors into consideration. No, we don't take that factors into consideration. We do understand the challenges, but also we have made these things available for the students in different platforms. And if you have any challenges, you can always communicate to us what the challenge is, and we will look into matters how we can support you in terms of that. Okay, so it is very important. Why we say the standard will not drop, because you have the opportunity to revisit the videos. There are not only me, there are other lecturers in the entire faculty working day and night to put content to the LMS platforms and other platforms. Sometimes the energy and effort they put can go beyond from a normal physical setting, the energy they need to put for a physical setting. Rather, more than that, they need to put into certain times for these online lectures. So all the content are being delivered, being uploaded, is given. Grievances you can always pass to us. If we can handle them, we can address those issues. So always come if you have challenges, but it is your duty to get your content, your lectures up to date. So we don't have tutorials for this course. Now your senior students, fourth year, final year students, economic development is not a lesson topic to be spoken right now, but you can learn the application part of it. So straight away I will move to the session. As always, I would like to give some videos, some practical applications, get you closer to the content. So the video is not about globalization. The video speaks about the negative aspects of globalization, because that is an area which is not widely spoken. Globalization is an aspect I have closely spoken about during the early stages of the international trade course. So I will not go in depth talking what globalization is, but globalization has basically changed the spheres and way we deal in especially in trade as well as in commerce. So globalization can be the stepping stones which has led for digital transformations for online platforms, because if the goods and services didn't cross borders, basically the need of having online transactions, the need of visiting outlets through online platforms will not have been one of the primary concerns in day-to-day business operation. So globalization has interlinked all outlets, has interlinked different industries, different businesses, different countries, and has taken that into another level. So globalization, without globalization, we can't move forward. It has its own pros as well as it is cons. So currently, if we take the context of Sri Lanka, what we are facing is, yes, we took a very positive stance of getting ourselves opening up our economy. Back in the late 80s, we were able to open up our economy. We were very smooth. We thought of developing this country by having other parties or other nations bringing in their products as well as opening up trade in this country. But the problem is after 30-40 years, when we turn back, was opening the economy the answer? Was globalization was the answer? Because globalization is always a good thing, but you need to know that so because of that, because of globalization, because of these developments, there have been a large number of imports of what we call automobiles, vehicles. For vehicles, we need diesel. For diesel, we need dollars. For vehicles, we need dollars. The dresses, the outfits which we wear, upon the people who sew it or the juki machine operators at these so-called places. Apart from that, apart from the tailors, every product, every single needle might have brought from dollars. And the electricity which I'm using right now, which you are using right now, is paid in dollars. So everything we do, even if we go to the Sri Lankan only product place, sometimes we might buy the product which was done in Sri Lanka, but the labeling, packaging, and everything might have been done from some other country, which again is dollars. So globalization is good. It brought in products that cannot be enjoyed within the country. Now we will not have the luxury if globalization didn't take place, and if we didn't say yes to globalization, we will not have iPhones, we will not have Samsung, we will not have LG, we will not have Kodak, or you name it, Sony, that and this. All kinds of brands have come into the country due to the flow of globalization. But also because of that, it might have hindered local producers. People who were really good with IT, they are not now capable enough of producing computers, laptops, phones, because they can't cope up with the pricing strategies of the main key players of the international markets. Now, for an example, EVs is one of the local bodies who are capable enough of producing laptops and things. They have their own factory in Hambantota, if I'm not mistaken. So, but now EVs is not capable enough of fighting with HP, Dell, or so-called branded versions. And also, Sri Lankans have this attitude or mindset: if it's not local, if it's some foreign product, some foreign brand, they feel more comfortable, confident, and they think that is a quality product. And they also are willing to pay a higher price and purchase that product. Also, in the meantime, there can be high quality products, there can be standard products, and many valuable products which are being produced locally by local suppliers at a cheaper price. But still, for all, when you look at the price, sometimes you will doubt, will this product do the intended service it is supposed to do? So, if EVs is selling a laptop at 30,000, you will question twice whether me spending 30,000 with EVs, or is it better to settle down with a Dell laptop or a HP laptop, which will cost roughly about 150,000, but still I'm comfortable. There is no peer pressure. Everyone will respect my decision. So we need to change our attitudes. In the future, we are going to have a very hard time because we took the trends from very wrong ends of it. So globalization is good, but unfortunately we picked it up from the wrong end. So let's check a video and let's get back to our discussion. So I hope this video will be audible for you.
You've been waiting in line for hours to get your hands on the newest version of your smartphone, promising quicker access to information while featuring quick and intuitive on-the-go banking, a built-in GPS to help you get to that concert you've been so desperately waiting for, and of course, the easiest tools to help you share that cute cat video on your social networks. The world is at your fingertips. While our smartphones can easily connect us to the rest of the world, the processes and resources involved in manufacturing, distributing, and selling smartphones to customers are not so simple. iPhones, for example, are the direct result of over hundreds of thousands of people spanning over 19 countries and 3 continents. From concept and design to the differing components and phases involved in the development of the iPhone, these components each have a different development process and are often sourced from a variety of countries. From semiconductors and accelerometers to memory chips and application processors, these parts are all eventually sent to China, where factory workers follow a meticulous 141-step process to assemble an iPhone in less than 24 hours. By the end of 2014, over 70 million iPhones were assembled and shipped to stores across the world. The cross-border production of the iPhone represents just one of the processes of globalization. International communities, organizations, corporations, and individuals are becoming increasingly interconnected through economics, politics, culture, and the environment. The increase of countries opening their borders has promoted substantial proportions of global trade. In economically developing parts of the world, lower wages, relaxed laws, and reduced taxes have made it more profitable for multinational corporations like Apple to manufacture products overseas instead of in their home countries. Undeniably, globalization has helped consumers access a greater diversity of products and services at a lower price and at a quicker pace. Although the idea of increased international trade and faster technological development seems like a pretty good thing, is globalization beneficial to everyone? What is the true cost of achieving that lower price point? Sourcing cheaper labor often results in hiring overseas workers that migrate thousands of miles in search of employment, like the many who migrate to Shenzhen, China, to work for the Taiwanese-owned technology company Foxconn. These deprived workers struggle to feed their families and have difficulty obtaining adequate healthcare because they pull in less than a living wage, earning as low as an equivalent of $1.78 US an hour. Foxconn is frequently in the spotlight for their unethical factory conditions and strenuous work hours, and their unbearable working conditions resulted in 14 workers committing suicide in 2010. Similar work conditions have been documented in mineral mines around the world. The quest to obtain minerals has not only contributed to harsh mining conditions and increasing environmental degradation, but has also supported the funding of the ongoing civil war in the Democratic Republic of Congo through the illegal mining and selling of conflict minerals to technology companies around the world. As technology allows us to connect with one another on a global scale, this awareness has mobilized individuals around the world to campaign against these injustices, encouraging companies to become more transparent and share information about their products' origins. These companies are taking action by mandating safer work conditions, enforcing fines for incompliant suppliers, and even threatening to move business elsewhere. New companies are also following suit in response to the ongoing criticism of the technology industry. Fairphone, a Netherlands-based smartphone company, is employing these standards by committing to ethics-based production and sourcing methods. So, where do we go from here? It's easy to point the finger at corporations and blame them for the negative social and environmental impacts of smartphone production. But is there something more we can do as consumers? What is our responsibility as part of the global supply chain? The next time you pick up your phone to check out that cute cat video, remember the combined efforts of the people around the world who work to make your phone. The world is truly held at our fingertips.
So that video is just a glimpse to show the negative aspects of globalization. There can be certain areas which even we are currently facing. So it is your duty, it is our duty together understand, support the national protectionism, any movements which goes ahead with it, and try to see to develop this country into another state. So today our focus areas is international trade and economic development, trade, growth, and development. Basically, that is what we are focusing. So in order to focus this area, mainly we need to speak about primary products. So primary products are derived from all extractive occupations. Extractive occupations is basically to give you a better understanding following resources basically. Farming, lumbering, fishing, mining, quarrying, foodstuff, and normally raw materials. So primary products are the products mainly developing countries focus. Okay. Developed countries focus something beyond these. They focus on technology. They focus on innovative things which goes beyond these natural. Most of the time, we can say natural resources because if you look at the world properly, uh, developed countries are countries most of the time lack natural resources. Now, what was the reason for British to come to Sri Lanka? What was the reason for Portuguese to come to Sri Lanka? What was the reason for the Dutch or the Hollanders or the Netherlands? Basically, the Hollanders to come to Sri Lanka. What was the reasons for Spaniards to go to other parts of the world is the fact that they didn't have abundant, they didn't have natural resources. But you see, developing countries, or we can say countries specifically in Asian regions, in African regions, they are in abundant of what we call these primary products. Now, if you look at mining and quarrying, that is where you find gold, lot of gold, mineral kind of things. Canim Kerala, Patal Lagan, they will come across those in the African continent. Okay, then farming is more popular when it comes to the Asian region specifically and other areas as well. Raw materials. Now you see, for globalization to happen, I think in this video also you have understood. Now, an iPhone to become a finished good, there are a lot of raw materials which comes into the process, and that comes from different parts in the world. Some parts are from Germany, some parts are from Morocco, some parts from China, and these have been assembled at China. So most of these raw materials also comes from developing countries. Okay, even when you look into fabric and stuff which are needed for even the apparel industry, most of the time it comes from developing countries. So their primary focus of a developing country most of the time is they will focus on these extractive occupations. And here they haven't added oil, so oil also is one of the things that they focus on. But when the world start developing, when progressing, developing countries also understood that export is a necessity to survive. And as a reason of it, there are countries in the world who are export depending countries. So in the country, if you take for an example, countries like we can even consider Singapore is such a country, as well as yes, sometimes even USA, some European countries can be export depending countries. Mainly, like even Maldives sometimes is an export depending country. Not Maldives. Maldives is more of a tourism country, but Sri Lanka should have been an export depending country. What do you expect from being an export depending country? The country is making the best use of the natural resources within the country. Since there's an oversupply of the product, what they do, they first cater their domestic market, and then the oversupply is taken into the other parts of the world. Or sometimes it need not to be an oversupply, it need not to be where they support first the domestic market. They can straight away put the products into the international market, and their main source of income comes from exports. Now Sri Lanka, they say they are very popular for tea, rubber, that is what we have been learning from very small days, and for coconut. These are the three main commodities that we have been boasting about. Then apart from it, we speak high about our tourism sector. Okay, and then we look into our foreign remittances. But unfortunately, we have failed to capitalize on three commodities I have mentioned, and we have failed big time to capitalize on exports and imports. Because when you look into the budget deficit, Sri Lanka has always been in a budget deficit, and always, exports have been lower than the imports that we are providing. So that is one reason why we have gone to a dollar crisis or an exchange rate crisis, mainly because we have a heavy reliance on our imports compared to our exports, right? That is why now all of these dollar crises have come. Now just imagine this dollar crisis have come after we have had a 2 years ban of importing automobiles. ඒ කියන්නේ වාහන ගෙන්නන එක නවත්තලා අවුරුදු දෙකකට පස්සේ තමයි we are facing this dollar exchange crisis. Just imagine if this crisis could have been fast forwarded if by any chance we didn't bring that back. So see how bad the economy got worsened. Not today, the economy was worse anyway. And we couldn't capitalize on the exports. Our exports are comparatively low to other parts of the world. I am just checking because there was a light drop of this thing current. I hope this has been recorded. So the export depending countries can have the luxury when now if Sri Lanka was an export depending country right now, and when our rupee value was depreciated, we could have enjoyed a lot of profits. But unfortunately, we don't have many reliable exports. And unfortunately, as I started speaking of the three commodities, we couldn't capitalize on it. Tourism, we have failed big time with the Easter Sunday attacks, with the COVID-19, and now the economic crisis. I wouldn't say fail, but they've been pushed to the corner. They can't do anything. And unfortunately, we've been heavily relying for the past decade or so on foreign remittances, where we send people abroad and we ask them to send money to us. And now those people are questioning, not once, not twice, more than that. They're questioning from themselves, they're questioning from their families, they're questioning the system which is in place in Sri Lanka. Is it safe to send money from abroad to Sri Lanka? Will that money be used appropriately, correctly, or will it be mismanaged? So with those doubts, people have decided, I think people are speculating not to send money. With the crisis, the system will fail and so forth. So there are export dependent countries where developing countries shifted to that policy, as well as free trade also came into play. So I don't want to explain free trade in depth because we have done international trade, but we will watch a video and we will continue the session.
Throughout the 2016 election, candidates Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have had clearly divided and opposing views, but one topic on which they share their opposition is that of free trade agreements. Many people have demonized free trade agreements like NAFTA and the TPP in the last year. So what exactly are these agreements and what is so bad about them? Well, first, it's important to realize that the world economy, and by extension standards of living, are dependent on international trade. In practice, countries which produce more usually do better economically, and many countries enact trade rules which favor their own production. For example, in the 1920s, European farms were able to sell agricultural goods to the United States very cheaply. This undercut American farmers, and so Congress passed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff, which raised taxes on imports. This artificially made foreign goods very expensive compared to domestic goods, now favoring the American farmer. Laws and rules like these are called protectionist. Free trade agreements are, at their most basic, a series of compromises between countries. They remove protectionist restrictions and taxes, but also work to keep participating economies from falling apart without them. Most countries are members of the World Trade Organization, which regulates international trade agreements and maintains the global economy. But one of the problems with free trade agreements is that they can also hurt consumers. For example, in 2011, tobacco giant Philip Morris sued the country of Australia for implementing anti-smoking regulations. The company argued that the regulations would violate a portion of a 1993 trade agreement between Hong Kong and Australia because plain packaging would diminish their trademark. And even though the lawsuit failed to stop restrictions, it is an example of free trade agreement overreach. A much more common complaint, especially in the US, is that free trade agreements lead to outsourcing and a loss of American jobs. When the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, was established between the US and Canada and Mexico in 1994, it eliminated most taxes on imports and exports between those countries. This made it cheaper to import food and goods from Mexico than it was to grow or make them in the United States. This led to considerably cheaper goods and a net benefit for consumers. However, the trade agreement also led to outsourcing those same farming and manufacturing jobs to Mexico. It's been estimated that 1 million jobs have been lost to NAFTA over the past 2 decades. In short, a free trade agreement makes it easier for foreign countries to compete with local production, making everything less expensive according to free market principles. But for those workers who actually have to compete with cheaper foreign labor or resources, they're often forced to find new work. There are also a huge number of other considerations besides actual trade that go into free trade agreements, like environmental and copyright concerns. In the end, free trade agreements can make goods cheaper and more available. However, this benefit can come at the expense of thousands, if not millions, of jobs. The TPP is one such free trade agreement that has received major criticism. But what exactly is that trade agreement about? Check out our video here to learn more.
Economists like Robert Reich has called this a global race to the bottom. That's an economic term for when governments reduce regulations and taxes in order to attract investing companies. This practice has the added effect.
So I think that also might have given you a glimpse of the importance of free trade agreements, or is it bad, is it good? So it depends. Sri Lanka also have few free trade agreements, which we need to capitalize it more to make for the betterment of the economy. So free trade agreements is where there are no tariffs, taxes, and certain stuff which controls or which demotivates to have exports and imports. So in that free trade zones, even Sri Lanka has free trade zones. You can basically the price of the product which is been exported or the price of the import product can be if you buy rice from India, and if we are in a free trade agreement, basically the price of rice in India and the price of rice in Sri Lanka needs to be the same. So that is the whole purpose of it, but it has its negative aspects of as well, where you lose job opportunities, it will hinder suppliers in the market and so forth. So the people who are working on those free trade agreements will need to make better negotiations. So those are a bit of the stepping stones for international trade. We have the WHO, we have the GATT, General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs, the WHO, the World Health Organization, then the World Trade Organization, okay, which controls a lot of things and is very important for your understanding. So we will move forward with the session. So there are a few questions which we are always trying to find answers for when it comes to international development, international growth, and so forth. So first question is, how does international trade affect the rate, structure, and the character of economic growth? As in how well international trade support economic growth in terms of the rate increase, in terms of the structure, character of the economic. So let's look into some figures, imports and exports of Sri Lanka, right? International trade. So if you can easily even visit these figures. Let me go to the central bank so we can get better figures. So for you better always visit this. So here the financial stability review is uploaded. Then here latest information is here. It talks about the consumer price index, Colombo consumer price index. It has increased, and so forth. Latest information are here. So as economic students who are studying, it is very important to focus on these areas. So if you type annual report, okay, if I haven't worked with this from the very inception of annual reports you will get from the very inception, where the central bank was incepted in 1950. From 1950 till 2021, all the annual reports are available. So we can download PDFs based on the sectors. So I'm trying to look into external sector developments and financial, not financial. I think chapter number 6 is national output chapter. So firstly, let's look the situation of the country. So here you see, this is basically the international trade that we want to speak of. Now they have given us some basic information. There have been vulnerabilities, the balance of payments, certain information they have given us. Okay, so in general, if you look our trade balance, imports, this is for 2020 and 2021 comparison. So you see exports have increased, okay, but in the meantime, imports also have increased. So if you look, there's a change of roughly about 4,000 million. There's an increase. Also, there's an increase of exports, but the comparative increase of exports, if you compare the imports, the value has been very high. And also you see the trade deficit between 2020 and 2021 is also has increased. So it's not a good sign for us. So that is one reason why these we have a negative balances. So external sector, the performance they have depicted. So the external sector continued to face heightened challenges in 2021. So you see the rupee has been depreciating against the pound, against the dollar, it has been depreciating. So in 2020, depreciated by 2.6. It depreciated in 2021 by 7%. Now it has decreased by 33%. Now it might be even higher. But you see, against the euro, we have appreciated. Against the yen, we have appreciated. And here they have discussed our total exports have been 12.5 billion. You see 12.5 billion over here, right? 12.5 billion. And out of the 12.5 billion, the biggest chunk has been 5.4, which has been from textiles and garments. So we talk highly about our tea, we talk highly about our rubber, which gives a very small quantity, as well as we also have been exporting petroleum products. This is not diesel, petrol, okay, some other kind of oils that we have been exported. So our biggest exporter, as you see, when we don't consider the other, so other will be a combination of countries. For a single country, it has been USA. So if you take the European Union, that is a combination of countries, still we have been exporting only 3 billion. So you see a bigger portion we are sending to USA. So if USA face any challenges, or if USA decides not to import from Sri Lanka, that is going to have a hard hit. Okay, in 2020, we had a trade deficit of 6 billion. Now the trade deficit is 8 billion in 2021, and it is way higher compared to this year. It will be way higher. So here imports, our biggest importer has been, we have been importing from China. You know, China went for a 6 with COVID. Even still they are finding difficulty. So out of the 20 billion that we have been exporting, importing, sorry, our biggest component has been fuel. And nowadays also, you know, what our biggest importing product currently has also been fuel. So monitor, machinery and equipment, textile articles. Now you see, this is all that important information. We have brought textiles, garments, 5.4 billion we have brought as exports. Okay, as exports, we have brought 5.4 billion. In the meantime, textiles and articles, the imports for those 4.54 billion has been roughly about 3.1 billion. I'm not saying this entire 3.1 billion was brought to produce this 5.4 billion. But if we look at that assumption, assuming that this entire 4.5 billion was done through this 3.1 billion, basically, if you take the net exports of it, only 2 billion increase has been brought by it. Okay, so if it is roughly about 2 billion, so which means the tea exporting tea is more or less kind of closer to the textile industry, even though it is being shown as 5.4 billion, it can be much more smaller when you look into the net impact of it. Okay, so if we go further, all right, then it talks about the current account. So in the current account, we have these IT components, transport, the worker remittances also is been included separately apart from these exports and imports, as well as tourism also is been increased, is been shown. So when you look, when you see transports, the net effect has increased. Okay, and then here the IT or the BPOs have increased. So basically it has been significantly winding, not in favor of us. You see tourism has reduced compared to the previous year. In 2021, the contribution has reduced, and even the worker remittances. Now we are having a bigger challenge here. People are not sending in money. Instead, they are finding illegal ways of sending money. So there has been an impact there, right? So if you look further, so the inflows, so government loan disbursements, and then the repayments. You see the biggest chunk has gone as repayments and gross official reserves. We had in 2020 we have had 5.7 billion. 2021 it has been 3.1 billion, and currently we have even less than I think less than 100 million. So it is very challenging, because now we need fuel close to about 3.7 billion, that is for an year. Sometimes due to the over or the excess demand, this figure might be way higher. So with even with this reserve in 2021, we had only 3.1 billion, which means we can't even take, even if you use the 3.1 billion completely, we are not capable enough of buying the fuel which is needed for this country. So you can go through these accounts and you can learn a lot. So for more information, you can always visit the central bank, and you can go through these content. So here, as I previously explained, our export destination, our biggest has been USA. Previously, I discussed this. So USA has been the biggest player in the market. So 27% of the total market. This is in 2016. So in 2016, the biggest importer we have been importing has been India and China. Okay, so mainly by China. From China, we mostly import the products which are needed for the apparel industry mainly. Then when we look into 2021, how the scenario is, you see USA still is the biggest player. They have but it has reduced. That initially it was 27, and now it has reduced to 25. But you see the EU sector has improved compared to the previous 5 years, and China has increased its share. India has increased its share. So basically, these are the two biggest players in our market when it comes to international trade. So yes, so I will not take time on these again. You can visit these, you can look into, you can go through the annual reports and get a basic understanding of what I have explained. So the question here was, how does international trade affect the rate, structure, and character of the economic growth? I showed higher the imports, lower the exports, and if it is mismanaged, we have problems. We will lose employment opportunities that and this from the videos which I showed. Also, we need exports, we need imports to grow the economy. So because of international trade, what will happen? There will be an increase of consumption. I need not to give better examples. If there was no international trade, there will not be vehicles in this country, there will not be fuel in this country, there will not be highways in this country. So there has been an increase of consumption. So because of international trade, previously we were not able to consume vehicles. Now we are able to consume vehicles. Previously we were not able to consume Nike Adidas shoes. Now we are able to use Nike Adidas shoes, as well as increase of world output. So in general, let's forget about countries. Let's assume there are no countries and there's only one world. So if on that basis, if you see, then also the output is increasing. Previously, let's say the total demand for Nike shoes was 6,000 in USA. Now, since Sri Lanka is engaging in international trade, there's a demand for another 1,000. So basically 6,000 in USA, 1,000 in Sri Lanka. That will increase the world output by 1,000 units. So you see an increase of world output. And also access to scarce resources. So Sri Lanka might have scarce resources. For an instance, let's say we have diamonds. For an example, we have diamonds and we don't have the technology to excavate it out of it. We don't have mechanisms to make use of those. So for these scarce resources, even the international companies can come into the country and say, hey, look, we are building wristwatches, we are making wristwatches. For wristwatches, we need diamonds, we have the technology, we have the know-how to extract these diamonds from the soil and to make the best use of it. So international trade will basically will speed up the growth rate, or it also can deteriorate the growth rate. So it depends on how well you balance things out. So which will assist poor countries to grow alongside with the developed countries, but that doesn't mean always there will be a positive impact. It is how well you balance things off and how well you use these conditions will assist countries to do their best. So that is the first question which pops with the international trade in a traditional environment. Then let's look into the next. So how does trade alter the distribution of income and wealth within a country among different countries? So the point of doing trade is somehow to distribute our income. Okay, from one place to another place, you take the income as well as to distribute resources from one place to another, and by that to grow a nation or two nations of the world as a large. But there are common concepts, not misconceptions, that normal trade, let's forget about it. International trade, even normal trades can lead to inequalities, or is it equal? Okay, so trade, basically international trade or trade promotes greater international as well as domestic equality in factor prices. For an instance, international trade gives us an opportunity where, let's say, we are trying to manufacture glass water bottles. That is our product. So our raw material is going to be glass. So if we are to find glass supplies in the country, let's say one glass sheet is about 5,000 rupees. And because of the international trade things, we might be able to order eBay, order through Amazon, or we are able to get in hold of an international supplier where he agrees, okay, we can sell it for 2,500. So now locally, if you are to get this, it can be 5,000, but internationally you can get this for 2,500. So you can get an equal opportunity in a world, in an international platform, where you can get a glass sheet which is equal to another country's price, which is 2,500. And also it can raise one's real income, because now you have an opportunity to match your pricing match everything to the world pricing, not to the domestic pricing, as well as making efficient uses of domestic and world resources. So now, if there are monopoly markets domestically, they will open up and will become more efficient. So monopoly is not efficient compared to perfect competitive markets. Okay, now those are two extreme ends. And when the moment the monopoly is being broken down, it becomes much more efficient when it goes through the flow of oligopoly, monopolistic, and perfect competitive markets. So the market making it efficient. So international trade will force the market to become efficient. Okay, international will force the market to be efficient. Okay, operating based on demand and supply. Production efficient. Now market efficient is where the market is being balanced. Production efficient is at lower cost you operate, minimum cost operation. Okay, then you have output efficiency. Output efficient means you are producing at the optimum level. Okay, output is at its maximum. Consumption efficient. Okay, consumption efficient is where the consumers are happy. Consumers know that what they are purchasing is valued for. So these are just bit of the efficiencies that you can reach. So allocative efficiency, that is another thing. Allocative efficient, that is where the resources are being fully utilized or in a way appropriately supporting the production process. So these are very important, and international trade is upholding these things. Okay, then there's another question that we need to answer. Under what conditions can trade help a nation to achieve its development objectives? Now, this is very important to countries like Sri Lanka. Where to use international trade, how to use international trade, at what conditions are we going to seek the help of international trade? So firstly, by promoting and rewarding the sectors of the economy where individual countries possess a comparative advantage. Now I'm talking these questions that have been popped in the traditional trade mechanisms. So now we have moved from comparative advantage, we have moved to factor endowments and so, and we have come into even new trade theories. Okay, we have evolved to even new trade theories, right? So we need to reward. Now rewarding the sectors is where one example is where we capitalize on tourism. Unfortunately, we were not able to capitalize the right aspect of it. Now, just to give a glimpse of tourism, now we promote ourselves as tourism, tourist country, a country who is who is trying to uphold for tourism, trying to promote in different mechanisms, but we don't have even a Disneyland. Let's forget a Disneyland. We don't have even amusement parks. So when a foreigner comes into country, it's not only about looking or window shopping or sightseeing, okay, giving you the glimpse of the historical, like yes, we will also like to walk and see pictures, we would like to walk and see monuments, we will like to walk and see fortresses. Yes, that is a part of it, but also you need to enjoy. It's not about walking and seeing, it's not about hiking and seeing, also you need to enjoy. So what are the things that we have done for foreigners to come to Sri Lanka and enjoy? So have we promoted it in the right way or in the intended way? So like that we need to look into, and we need to take advantage of economies of scale. So economies of scale is where when it comes to manufacturing, when you keep on adding or when you keep on producing more number of units, their average cost keeps on reducing. So it is just the basic of economies of scale. Then you have managerial economies of scale, you have operational economies of scale, there are different forms of economies of scale. So you need to make use of those different forms of economies of scale. So should Sri Lanka continue producing rice? Should Sri Lanka produce agricultural products? Okay, now these are the focuses we should pay attention to. Now, why is Sri Lanka not producing motor vehicles and why is Japan producing motor vehicles? Because Japan has economic scales of producing motor vehicles. It has the technology, it has the experience, it has the culture which is needed for an automobile industry to operate, and it has the right environment, the factors it needs, and everything. But Sri Lanka, we don't have the experience of doing it. We don't have the right factories for doing it. We don't have the expert knowledge of doing it. So basically, we don't have the economies of scale. So that is why we aren't producing motor vehicles, and that is why Japan is producing motor vehicles. And also, those are just facts and figures only. But there can be now, if you look Singapore, how is Singapore being one of the world's strongest countries? Now, if we go on and see on the internet, the strength of Singapore, Singaporean economy. Okay, so you see that's an high income economy, a very small country, bit larger than Sri Lanka, can be bit larger than Sri Lanka. Okay, Singapore commitments by fiscal policies. Let's see facts and figures. Okay, let's go to the World Bank, and in World Bank, let's search for Singapore. So when we focus on certain things, so you see imports, these are in US dollars 3.358 million, but exports are 390 something million. So you see their exports are greater than their imports. So the number of products is not important, number of partners who are playing is not important for us. So Singapore, the 5 exports and imports. So the biggest exporters, biggest importers. So these are the biggest exporters and these are the importers for Singapore. But they bring mainly, and see the number of tariff agreements by 2019, they have had 24. Duty free, what they have made the best out of the duty free, they have made close to about 300 and yes, those are in thousands, so 305,240. Maximum rate, weighted average, everything is available. So Singapore happens to be one of the strongest economies. Let's say, see, the life expectancy is 84. Population, now Sri Lanka, there is 22 million. In 2020, it would have been like 20 million. They have only 5 million. Population growth is a negative 0.3. That means compared to their birth rate, their death rate is high. Net migration, roughly about 135,142 people are coming in, or migrating, sorry. Okay, human capital index in the scale of 0 to 1, 0.9, that is a better indication. 340, GDP is 340 billion. Sri Lanka, 84 billion. So now they are higher than us about 3 times, more than them. Almost four times. But their GDP growth is a negative 5.4. But if you look into our Sri Lankan, we have cooked the books. We say it's 3.1 and that, but they have openly told that's a negative. Unemployment is a very good amount, 3.6. Inflation is 2.3. But personal remittances based on this indicator, let's see. Comparing the Singaporean economy, compare Singapore economy. Okay, compare Singapore economy to EU So to the European Union. So you see Singapore, the GDP 340. So EU is a bigger country. Let's say USA. Okay. So size comparison is not quality of life. So you see, let's do the other way around. So in terms of life expectancy, they have a life expectancy. Geography, they have, so you can do comparisons and see how the cost of living is compared. So here basic meal and a drink is 10 point. United States it's 14 point, which means Singapore is inexpensive. Fast food is also inexpensive, that is in terms of food. Okay, then motor vehicle, when it comes to petrol, you see USA is better compared to Singapore. But see the strength of the economies. Okay, so I will not waste time here again. So we have understood this question as well. Next, can a developing country by its own actions determine how much it trades or which products and services it sells? Can a developing country by its own actions determine how much it trades? That means by its own actions. We thinking that there is no other country who is going to support them. In a world of free trade, international prices and cost of production determine how much a country should trade in order to maximize its national welfare. So you can't just ignore international trade. You can't ignore international trade, as well as you can't ignore globalization. Those are important aspects and you need to move forward with it. Countries should follow the principles of comparative advantage. Now, these are traditional concepts, traditional questions that have been asked, and not try to interfere with the free workings of the market through the government policies and either promote exports or restrict imports, which is pretty straightforward. We have one more question, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, as one more question. Should a developing country adopt an outward-looking policy? Okay. So should a developing country adopt an outward-looking policy? So should Sri Lanka look forward for free trade, more open, look into the other parts of the world, or look at inward-looking one? That is what we are now currently trying to propose: protectionism, interest of self-reliance, or have a combination of both. So the answer is, traditional answer would be to promote growth and development, and outward-looking international policies required. In all cases, self-reliances are based on partial and complete isolation is asserted to be economically inferior to participation in world of unlimited free trade. So the governments, the authority needs to take full responsibility as well as authority to control situations and make use of open economies. But that doesn't mean, like, you move forward with international trade, that doesn't mean you cannot practice protectionism theories or protectionism. So Sri Lanka, what currently needs is going into better agreements which will be favorable for the economy of Sri Lanka, where we can showcase our talents, we can make use of the so-called, previously we discussed the condition where we have certain industries where we have economies of scale, where we can capitalize those industries with economies of scale, make use of it, and get a better outcome of it. And also in the meantime, we need to try to protect certain industries, which if we open up our economy, can have a small challenge to the growth or for the development of that industry. So all in all, that is the first part of the session where we have discussed, just to give a summary of what we have done. So we worked on the international trade. We started off with globalization. We discussed the primary products, and from there we went on to export, to free trade and so forth, and trade promote. Then we started discussing the conditions, and can developing country by its own actions, we try to find the answers, as well as should we adapt an open economy or a closed economy. So I think with y'all, I have previously done this also. Biggest importer of rice, biggest exporter of rice. Let's look into that list. Rice in the world. Biggest exporter of rice in the world. So let's see the list. Okay, so India is a larger country. We has heavy reliance on, unfortunately, we don't have data there. So 2019 we will have, we can make use of. So here, India is the biggest country. Then we have Vietnam, Pakistan, United States, China, Burma, Cambodia, Brazil, and Uruguay. Now, if we let's compare Burma. Now, what have you seen Burma? Burma is another name for Myanmar. Okay, Burma geography compared with Sri Lanka. Let's see our scenario, world data and everything. Now, Burma is one of the top countries in terms of exporting rice, right? So if you say population wise, Burma is a larger country. Burma in terms of area is a larger country. But let's see in terms of quality of life, who is better off? Political stability, we have lower political stability, lower civil rights. Health wise, we are high. Climate, we are 50. Health wise also we are lower. Cost of living, we are better off. Popularity, we are almost the same. Now look the economy. Okay, unemployment rate, we are higher. Inflation rate, we are better. Cost of living, we are a bit higher. And average income earned. Now see, the average income earned by a Sri Lankan citizen is higher than Burma. Okay, now population can play a bad thing, but gross domestic product, okay, gross domestic product for Sri Lanka is 80,000, whereas Myanmar is 79,000. But Myanmar is one of the biggest rice exporting countries in the world. So here 3.68 million per thousand, sorry. Number of goods we have been exporting. Now its size doesn't matter. Now you see this country is 10 times bigger than Sri Lanka. Burma or Myanmar is 10 times bigger than Sri Lanka. But see, our exports is 13 million here, so it's 13 billion. Okay, and here it is 17 billion. Okay, but imports, see, our imports are higher, but their imports are almost equal to their exports, which means they are breaking even. So those are the things that we need to look into. It's not about countries being bigger, not about countries being smaller. It is how well they manage their systems. So I will take a small pause here, and we can start discussing the other areas related to the topic, which we will start by. Developing countries should focus on international trade as mean of achieving higher economic development. Okay, so now those are the modern questions we are trying to focus on, and there are a few areas which we will discuss in depth.